is the most wonderful time of the year for one WNBA expansion team. We're going to break down the recent draft, some of the Sky free agency rumors, that and much more with myself, Steven, and a special guest right here on CHGO Sky. Welcome to CHGO Sky. We are back with another edition. I'm Katy, I'm your host today, and joining me is Steven Garner from Phoenix with much better weather than the rest of us. And our special guest today, we have Christan Braswell. He's a storm reporter for Circling Seattle Sports and also Converge Media. What's going on, guys?
I'm doing great. The expansion draft was fun. It's another bookmark moment in the history and the live chronicling of the evolution of the W and women's basketball in general. And as the rumor mill is already kicking up on the W side as well. So it's a lot to speak to, a lot to get to, but I'm feeling good as always. Chris, how you feeling, my guy?
Well, unfortunately for Katie, I'm in the South right now as well as Steve. I'm in Dallas right now, so I'm getting unseasonably 70 degrees today, but it's going back to 50 tomorrow, so I can't complain too much, right?
It's just me, man. This is unfair. Like, I don't like this. One thing I did like was the expansion draft, so let's get right into that. I want to start on the Sky side of things, since that's what we're doing here. First of all, let's just start very basic. Chris, what did you think of expansion draft, the Valkyries taking Marie Conde from the Chicago Sky?
I think that the Valkyries leadership had a clear objective going to this draft. One, they got help in the paint, and they also got a lot of really good young guards. Marie is one of them. They also got Carla Lady from Dallas. I feel like is a really good pickup. They really had a clear objective and a plan, and I feel they went through it pretty well.
Yeah, pretty much the same for me. I felt like they were, for the players that they actually had a chance to even gauge from other teams, which wasn't much as far as what they might be looking to add long term. I think they did as much as they could. Some of the players that they drafted might not make the final roster as they go into the 2025 season, but I feel like, I mean, their hands were behind their backs with all of this, and there was only so much they could actually do. I think they did as much as possible. And I think where they'll really be looking to make splashes is obviously via the draft, but even more so via free agency.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you take, if anything, from the fact that the Valkyries chose to take Maria instead of an active player on the Sky roster?
I thought that was a very interesting thing. I wasn't sure, obviously, who exactly the Sky protected because that remained confidential per each respective franchise. But I did feel like they were going to get someone of maybe more value as far as what we know them to be able to produce on the WNBA level. So seeing the pick that they ultimately went with definitely caught me off guard in multiple contexts, if I'm being honest, with a handful of teams across the entire W. So it was a little bit of a head scratcher for me. But again, when you don't know who teams are protecting because that's confidential, that leaves some gray area for scenarios like this.
Mm-hmm. Chris, did you have any thoughts on that?
I guess from yeah, I guess the last time it's been 16 years since there's been an expansion draft, and with 2026 coming up, and the PA reorganizing everything that's going on with the CBA, I feel like there's a lot of unknown going into the next season, next 2 seasons really. So maybe that kind of put into the decision making process. I think I saw a tweet from a couple of different people in the WNBA space that said that I think four of the players on the out of those 11 players on the Valkyries roster could decide to stay overseas next year. So maybe possibly they're looking out for free agency, like Steven was just saying, trades or something coming up soon.
Yeah, so 7 players, international players, but 4 that will remain overseas that we know of at least for next season. So, I mean, that's definitely interesting. I expect them to be super active in free agency. I know, Steven, you said the same thing. As for more general expansion draft stuff, biggest surprises. I mean, we saw a couple things that had people scratching their heads, a couple things that social media was lighting up about. Steven, biggest surprise from the expansion draft for you?
I gotta take the most obvious one that was surprising was Temi Fabele being available, the main thing being available from Indiana, and her being brought into Nakase's context with the Valkyries is going to be fun. Their roster is not complete. I think it's far from what it'll actually become open tonight after training camp and everything pertaining to that. But them having an active big that runs the floor and does a lot of the modern style things that you need to facilitate to an offense that's top end, they already have that in house and kind of squared away. I think that's a big domino for them to kind of knock down early on in the process, because I feel like that's something that's harder to come across than finding an above average to elite guard, whether that be a scoring guard or a lead guard, and kind of organizing your offense.
Yeah, Chris, what about you?
And I want to say Timmy too. I mean, Carla's a pretty big surprise, but I mean, we haven't really seen her in the W play yet, so I can't really hold that against Dallas's front office too much. But as far as Timmy, coming off of Steven's point, last year with Caitlin, really the guards in general in Indiana, she was a beast in the short roll, and I feel like that was one of the things was building Caitlin's game as a rookie. You don't really want to take away too soon. I mean, hopefully Indiana has a game plan going into free agency or possibly closer to camp, but you can't really replace bigs at 6'4" that can do the thing that she can do, especially with the ball in their hands.
I did throw this in our Die Hard Discord, which shout out to the diehards that are watching here today, and asked, what was their biggest surprise from the expansion draft, and several people echoed the same thing, that it was Temi from the Fever, that the fact that the Fever even left her unprotected. So I would be very curious to see, who they did protect then. Obviously, we know Caitlin Clark was one of them. I'd be curious to see the other five. I think with the Valkyries pick from the Aces, we've seen Kate Martin very quickly become the very first face of this brand new franchise. I'm curious what you guys thought about the pick of Kate Martin there. Obviously, the larger stars in Las Vegas would have been protected. So yeah, thoughts on Kate Martin and where she can take this team. Chris, I'll start with you here.
I don't think that Hayden Martin is going to be like some type of superstar level player, but I think it's important to have players in your roster that can do a little bit of everything. And baseball terms, she's kind of a five tool player. Can hit, can catch, can defend, do a little bit of everything. And that's what she can do. Especially a franchise as young as the Valkyries, having a player like that, especially at her age. Again, the contract, you can't beat the money. So I mean, I understand the pick, and also, I mean, Vegas didn't really have that many options to pick at. I mean, out of the six I thought they would have protected, I thought one of the ones that would have been protected maybe would have been Sid Colson. But if you're the Valkyries, I would take Kate Martin too, just the young and upside. So I think I'm not really surprised by it, but I think it's a good pick.
Yeah, I think for the optics in terms of how you have a player that can identify with a fan base from other teams, identify with their collegiate fan base, for her being so young, in addition to all of that, I think she's a perfect type of piece to spearhead everything that Golden State is looking to get into, with the community and on the promotion side of things. And then you take it on the court. I don't think that Kate is going to be like a top end level talent in any capacity either, but I do think she could be a role player that hits extremely loudly on the margins for any team that she's a part of. And we saw already with the Las Vegas Aces that she's a great teammate. So you take all of those things into context, you add someone that's a coach that she spent her first season with, and that already has a relationship that was budding before, they got their respective roles with the new franchise. I think that everything bodes well for Kate in this context, with Nakase leading the pack with everything. And obviously she still has to get better, and she has to be more playable and more consistent in general with everything that she's bringing to the court. But for the on the court combined with off the court, I don't think they could have done better in terms of finding a young player, and she'll kind of hit as a draft pick adjacent for this team going into the 2025 season, their inaugural one.
Yeah, Steven, would you say this was the best pick for the Valkyries, or do you think something else stood out to you more?
Nah, I wouldn't say it's the best pick. I do think there's high value for Kate there, but I think the best pick would be between Temi Kayla Thornton or Veronica Burton. Three players that identify directly with everything that Natalie Nakase mentioned that she's looking to establish with this team in terms of culture and identity. All three of those players have different levels of experience. They play three different positions, checking off the guard, wing, and center positions for the team. And I think that they're going to be spearheading the identity for the team. And with those three garnering inevitably a large bit of minutes for them, they're going to be able to kind of uphold those principles that Natalie is looking to have as a baseline for everything that they're looking to build to.
Yeah, those things that she mentioned, the qualities that she wanted on her team, competitiveness, high character, and a never satisfied mindset. Chris, I'll ask the same question to you. What was the best pick, the one that stood out to you from the Valkyries draft?
Considering the talent that's in this league, I knew the Valkyries were going to get a couple players because some teams can't protect everybody. Um, I'm not as surprised that the Liberty didn't protect Kayla Thornton because they have Niara Sadley, who's a little bit younger, cheaper contract, so that kind of makes sense. But yeah, Kayla Thornton, Timmy Fagbenle. But honestly, I've covered Veronica Burton back when she was in Dallas. I've watched her when she was at Northwestern. She's always had the talent. She's always had the skill set. She's never had the opportunity. And then you saw what she did when she went to Connecticut this past postseason, and she had career averages from the field, from three. I mean, she's really that great kind of point guard that can really execute the offense and find her own shot, which is something that she kind of struggled with to start her career. But now she's doing great. I can't wait to see what she does with this new franchise.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Kayla Thornton. I thought that was a really good pick for the Valkyries. I think that honestly was really high up there with my favorite ones that I saw. She's also one of 4 players with championship experience that the Valkyries took. I think that's something that if you are the GM or the coach of a brand new franchise in a league, that's something that you want to emphasize going into your expansion draft, right? Not only just veterans that have been there a long time, but veterans that have gone all the way to that championship. So yeah, Kayla Thornton was one of those players. And I'm wondering, do you think that's going to be a draw for free agents that are looking at this brand new franchise, not just saying, okay, you've got some really good young players on your team, you've got a really high ceiling, and you've also got like all this brand new facility, brand new, amenities, all these things, but you also have championship experience in your locker room. Is that going to be a draw for free agents looking at the Valkyries, Steven?
I think that will be kind of one layer of the draw that you're speaking to for free agents. I think the top of the top with that is going to be opportunity, though. As I mentioned, coming from the expansion draft, I don't feel like they're even close to what their roster is going to be going into the inaugural season of their franchise, and I feel like that the opportunity piece that they have to provide and really kind of bargain with free agents and kind of leverage. I think it's something that is a competitive advantage for them. And if I'm looking at other layers outside of that, I also think that although she is new to the head coaching realm, a coach that has won multiple championships and been a part of what a championship culture is, and really a pillar in helping to establish that under Becky Hammond's tutelage in Vegas. I think that's going to be another big piece that draws players in. Players want to win. They obviously want to make their money. They obviously want to be treated the right way. They obviously want to have the requisite level of amenities to be their best selves. But they also want to win. And I think they have a lot of the pieces in place to do just that. I think the other big thing you mentioned with Kayla Thornton, her leadership, I think per Breanna Stewart herself, they don't win this championship this past season without Kayla Thornton on their roster. And that's for tangible things on the court, but even more so for intangibles. And that leadership piece, already having that in-house, regardless of whoever they might add in free agency, is a big kind of X factor for me looking at them.
Yeah. Chris, I'll come over to you in just a sec, but we're going to take one really quick break first and tell everybody about our sponsors. Between work, social media, and the choices that life throws our way, it's no wonder we're more worked up. Coors Light celebrates rising above and choosing a chill mindset. Why not turn a crappy Bears game into a less crappy karaoke house party? Or after that tough loss, settle scores with an ice-cold peace offering. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/CHGO Dunk. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. We are also brought to you by Empire. Shopping for floors at a big box store can be very frustrating. You might talk to someone today who was working in plumbing yesterday. Flooring is all Empire today does. They live and breathe flooring, so you can be confident you're getting honest, upfront advice. Empire can't be beaten on quality, service, and speed, so competitors advertise low-quality products that Empire simply won't carry. Empire won't promise the lowest prices because anyone who does that is putting floors in your home that they wouldn't put in their own. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive $350 off when they use the promo code CHGO. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/CHGO for details.
You're not going to sing the jingle, are you?
No, the Bulls guys are going to be very upset with me because every time I produce their show, they try to make me sing the Empire jingle, and I never do it. So congrats. I didn't do it here either. Go ahead, Lawrence.
588-2300 Empire today.
Hi, Matt.
Should have made Katy
Yeah, Pac just came
It's
in
a
again.
whole thing here, guys. Watch Bulls later.
I
I'm
know.
sure they'll try to make me do it again. It's not going to happen. Anyway.
Yeah, one thing they come second to none in is ad reads, that's for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the task at hand here. David in the chat saying, I need a few Coors Light when I realize the WNBA season isn't for another 5 months. I feel that. I've been watching a lot of very bad Bulls basketball lately. I would really love some good team basketball. Anyway, back to the expansion draft. We were talking free agents with the Valkyries, things that are going to kind of draw them in. I'm curious, Christian, I left off before the break. Was there anything you heard there that made you think of a specific free agent and you're like, ooh, maybe that person is going to be looking at the Valkyries?
Honestly, no. I think not the fact that it's too early. It's just the fact that there's so many unknowns. And I remember the last time I tried to predict free agents going to a team, last WNBA offseason, and I think I was like 1 for 8. I mean, I'm not proud of it, but it just shows you how unpredictable this league really is. I will say this though, hiring Natalie out of Vegas, I think that was really the first great step they did. To free agents, to agents, to their families, they want to know their loved one and their professionals going to be taken care of. Having a coach like that that's been there and seen the rise of a franchise of such a team like Vegas, I think that was a great first step. And then also the leadership. I believe the GM from the Valkyries came from New York with Jonathan Kolb, so you know they don't mess around in New York. So I mean they have great leadership, so they're really off to a great start.
Yeah. Speaking of unknowns in the WNBA, I want to get to something else that has been top of mind for me, I know for you guys, and also for the people in the Discord that I was talking to earlier. The Valkyries choosing not to select someone from the Seattle Storm. I did not see this coming. And Christian, this is your expertise here. This is your beat. What can you tell us, either your instant reaction or what more you've learned about it since then?
Well, they didn't really have that many options, honestly. I know I was watching it live. We were going to record live for Sparking Seattle Sports, but we figured it wasn't going to be that long, so we're just going to wait till afterwards. But we're recording and we see there's no selection, and I'm it's like, oh, well, I mean, they could have picked McKenzie out of Indiana, but she's coming off a torn ACL. So it's like they possibly could have, but there's nothing really there for them to. And then also, the Storm only had really 6 contracts on the books for next season, and most of those contracts were key core players. They had about maybe 5 unrestricted free agents. So I mean, it was really slim pickings. It was either they were going to pick McKenzie or they were just going to go no selection. Um, I understand that there is a lot going on with Seattle right now, but I can assure you that that had nothing to do with the selection process. It was purely a basketball, strategy. I mean, why waste a roster spot if you're not sure that player is going to be, on the roster come training camp? So that's pretty much all that was to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to that little joke that was in the the Sky schedule release where they're like, suspect just has a lot going on right now. Like we're just gonna let
That
that
was
go.
hilarious.
That was
That was
really good.
hilarious.
Well done to their team
Yeah.
there. Steven, what have you been thinking about? What was your reaction? What's your insight here on the Valkyries choosing to just let the Storm deal with family business right now?
Well, it was just that for me. And looking at the roster, like I was just kind of taking a quick peek at some free agents, and it's like, oh, they were just on the Storm last season. Oh, this player was just on the Storm last season. So considering that each team could protect 6 players, and like Christian just mentioned, they only had just about that was on roster in terms of who they're committed to going into the next season. There wasn't really much to choose from. So that really didn't surprise me. I get the discourse is the discourse, and they're an easy target for anything right now in terms of engagement. So I get that part of it, but the context is the context. They didn't really have much to choose from, and they would err on not picking somebody like Kristen said that's probably not going to be on their roster next season. So
Yeah, I saw a couple people also saying, just salary cap wise, this could have been a good option to just leave that money open, leave some space for some free agents, and all those things. Speaking of free agents, speaking of the Seattle Storm, something that is on my wish list for the upcoming holiday season is Jewell Loyd on the Chicago Sky, and I would like to get to that next. She has been connected to the Sky in these rumors for a very long time since she's an Illinois native, but officially requested a trade, I want to say December 4th, somewhere around there. Let's get into it. What's going on with her, number one, leaving the Sky? I know we don't have a ton of details leaving the Storm. I know we don't have a ton of details on the investigation. We don't have to go super deep into that. But first and foremost, what's going on, Christian?
So it's of my belief that Jewell Loyd, reportedly submitted a request to be traded after the result of the investigation that was recently launched by Andy Constable out of the Sun Times, stating that there was multiple reports of player mistreatment and harassment going on throughout the season. Um, I believe that just because the investigation didn't yield any results doesn't mean that it didn't happen per se. When these things kind of happen, investigators, I've spoken to a couple of people in the field as far as investigations in the law field themselves. And if there isn't a violation of the amount, so like a policy violation, you can't really do anything. You can kind of recommend, okay, this is how to go about this, kind of mediate through the parties. You can't exactly just fire, a coach or, just kind of release a player out of a contract without, just cause. Kind of avoid a lawsuit. That's kind of what the legalese of this release was the other day or last week. And then, of course, the story has been turned into kind of Jewell Loyd versus the coaching staff. And I really feel like we've gotten away from the main purpose of the investigation, which was, as Annie reported, multiple reports of player mistreatment throughout the season. So I'm not really sure how we got to the point to where it's now Jewell Loyd versus the Storm, Jewell Loyd versus the coaching staff, and that's not really the case. And I can affirm that that's not the case. There have been multiple reports. Sometimes you can't exactly write or report everything because it can't be corroborated, or sometimes some people have jobs, they have careers, and sometimes some things lead back to them. I feel like that's kind of the one thing why we don't have so much information about this investigation at all. There have been some reports, like I put out 2 reports, I think the night of Annie released hers, stating basically how that transpired on the court and how the coaching staff allowed it. How some players on the Storm, good majority of them didn't really trust Nneka Ogwumike to be in meetings to talk about these type of things, as she is the WNBA president. They felt that she was partial to the coaching staff. So that's kind of laying a kind of groundwork to let you know how this is happening in Seattle. And again, like I understand it's been some time since the initial reports have come out, but the fact that we're here now, and it's like I said, Jewell Loyd versus the staff, Jewell Loyd versus Seattle. She signed a 2-year deal last offseason totaling over $500,000. This wasn't a decision made, overnight. It wasn't by the fly seat of her pants. This is a team that drafted her, in 20, I believe it was 2018, years ago. Um, so I'm not really understanding why we've gotten to this point. I understand that sometimes players are, not exactly treated the way they should be, and I think that's kind of what happened here. but also again, there's multiple reports of this. So again, it's kind of disappointing how this investigation has transpired, especially the lack of information that has allowed these kind of conspiracy theories to float around. But that's pretty much all that is going on that at least.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for breaking that down for us. It's a tough situation that we really don't know much about. And I wonder if we're even going to get more detailed information in the future. But baseline, Jewell Loyd wants out of Seattle, and for whatever those reasons are, she has now landed in rumors for several other teams. So, Stephen, do you think that the Sky, number one, should be taking a look at Jewell Loyd, and number two, why, if so?
I think the basics of the question at hand, should they be taking a look at Jewell? Absolutely. And why is her name? She's Jewell Loyd. I think that's the simple way to answer that. But if we kind of go into more details, this is a multiple-time All-Star. This is a two-time gold medalist. This is one of the best guards in the WNBA, one of the most all-around skilled guards in the WNBA that has championship and gold medal experience in multiple different roles at that. So you look at, like we just talked about with the Valkyries, adding players that don't only have experience but have winning experience. You can't really find many vets, especially at the guard position, that are available that have all of these boxes that we just spoke to that check them off in droves the way that Jewell Loyd does. You bring a player in like Jewell, that instantly shifts the accountability. As I wrote about on CHGO last week, not only is she a winner, but she knows what winning looks like because she's been a part of that culture for her entire career, spending time with both Sue Bird and Breanna Stewart, bringing home championships for the Storm 2 times. And I think that when you bring in a coach to match that in terms of Tyler Marsh being a 2-time champion himself and having also game plan to go up against Jewell in that, I think they can combine just kind of their experiences and compile them into help establish not just a culture, but a winning culture in Chicago. And I don't think you can start to look at anything past the establishing of a new culture for this Sky team. So having a player that can check off that box in tandem with the new head coach would be kind of a grand slam in a sense in terms of the offseason portion of everything for the Chicago Sky.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up your article because if you guys haven't read it, allchgo.com, take a look at it. The 3 points that he laid out in that article: championship pedigree, 3-point shooting, and offensive creation. I want to get to that offensive creation and her fit on the court with the Chicago Sky in a sec. Let's take our last break, though. There is no singing in this one either. I'm so sorry. There's nothing like attending a lively event for the holiday. Personally, this is not a lie. I'm being so serious. I'm going to see the Nutcracker in a few weeks, and I am deeply excited. It's on my calendar. It has been since March. If you also want to go to that or other events, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time is the best place to see exactly where you'll be sitting, from the seat view to the bathroom distance to the nearest exit. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHGO for $20 off. Download Game Time today because what time is it?
Game time.
Game time.
Oh, I got 2 of them. I love that. Whether it's pro or college, the best app to bet sports in Illinois is Circa Sports. High betting limits, low holds, and exceptional customer service. Bet on all your favorite teams in every game this season. Download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's get back into Jewell Loyd and her fit on the court with the Chicago Sky. We talked a little bit about what she would be bringing to the locker room. Let's get into what she would be bringing on the court. One thing that really stood out to me in Steven's article, again, I recommend you all go read, was the idea of how she drew defensive attention, even with Sue Bird and Brianna Stewart on the court. That's not easy to do. And kind of the idea that she could create that now with Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso. I've said this before on this show. I think anything that the Sky do right now has to be for, about, and with Angel Reese in mind. She is literally your future. She is your recruiting plan. So if they are going, into a strategy session about whether or not Jewell Loyd is going to work for this team, you have to lead with how is she going to work with Angel Reese. And I'm curious, Christian, to hear your thoughts on this. Jewell Loyd with Angel Reese and or Camila Cardoso on the court, hopefully all three together. Do you think it's a good fit, or do you think that's, a little bit iffy?
When the first report came out that Jewell Loyd requested a trade, my first thought, me being a Chicago native, she's going home. Skokie ain't that far from Chicago. Right down 94. So I mean, it's right there. But after a couple of days, I thought about it some more, and I was like, okay, Chicago's still on its way as far as getting the facility that she's kind of been used to these last, season and a half, really. So maybe, that's a selling point where it's like, other teams have this, Chicago doesn't. But at the same time, there's nothing like home. Steven being in Phoenix now, he still knows that, you can't really, go down to Harris and get an eight piece like you used to. I know that being in Dallas and, her being in Seattle, there's nothing like home cooking. I'm telling you, it's real. So I will never give out hope that possibly she could go to the Sky. As far as the fit, I think, when it was first reported, people were kind of like, oh no, Jewell Loyd, I understand that she's had a down season this year, and I understand that's kind of a drop off from, leading the league in points last year. But you also have to look at the change that came into this year. You come into the season with an all star, Hall of Fame four, Hall of Fame point guard, two players that you never played with you, and ever besides probably USA stuff or back in college. That's really about it. The only exposure they have on the court, real time like games. So I understand like why there is some hesitation, but if you've watched Jill Lloyd past this one season, past these last two seasons, you understand that she is one of the best guards in the league. What the Sky need as far as a decision maker on the court, someone that is has that kind of pedigree to get the ball where it needs to go. She's a shooting guard, but at the ball being in her hand, she's always been kind of a combo guard to me. The way she can make things happen, especially with two young bigs and Angel and Camilla. I really feel like that is something that could be the pick and roll game. I know it's real cliche, but with two bigs like that, you really have to pick your poison. Especially Angel because she's starting to come out a little bit more. You saw Camilla starting to hit the little 10-foot jumper stretch of the season. They're getting there. So once they start really stretching the floor, their own jump shots, and let's say you put Jewell in that conversation. I mean, how can you not want that? Like Steven said, Hall of Fame level guard is won twice. She has the pedigree. She can do it, and I would love to see that happen.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up some of her stats going down. Cherry, I apologize, in our comments was kind of saying the same thing. Says she doesn't check any of the boxes laid out by the GM or coach in the past month. Field goal percentage on a downward trend for 5 consecutive years. Career low from 3. Besides her rookie year, not a great distributor. Steven, which way are you leaning? Are you feeling like some of these stat issues that you're seeing, field goal percentage down, are going to be an issue, or are you more just trusting the eye test, what you're actually seeing on the court?
I'm definitely trusting the eye test. I don't think that one bad season, by her standards and her standards being as lofty as it gets at the guard position, I don't think judging her by one season that was generally not meeting expectations for the entire franchise for what they did in free agency going into last season, I don't think that's a fair lens to look at her game from. She's literally one season removed from the third highest scoring, what at that time was the second highest scoring season of all time. And now is bumped down to third because of Asia Wilson's greatness this past season. You can't just look at Jewell's game or assess her as a player after just one season. What she would bring to this team in so many different respects is just accountability. I think that she forces Angel and Camilla's hand in terms of their skill development because in order to get the most out of Jewell, they have to be better on the offensive end of the floor. And the main thing in that is their screening. Jewell is one of the better pick and roll ball handlers in the entire WNBA. I spoke in detail about that on the article that we've referenced on all CHGO. She's a player that always garners the attention of multiple defenders at one time. And that's not something that the Sky had in the manners in which she can garner that attention last season. She garners that attention because of her prowess as a high volume shooter, scorer, and just a general playmaker. She holds the opponents to account in terms of, like I said, having to have extra attention on her. So if you imagine her in a pick and roll where there's 3 Sky players on the other side of the court, and let's just say it's her and Angel in an empty corner, the defense has to commit someone else to that, in addition to the person that's guarding Angel. So when Jewell comes off of that screen, if Angel sets a good screen, that means there's going to be 2, if not 3 people committed to Jewell. That automatically opens Angel for an opportunity to get downhill without a defender directly in front of her. And if the defense is committed to Jewell the way that they typically are, that means that Angel's going to have a smaller defender waiting on her at the basket. And you know what she does anytime she has someone smaller. She's eager to put the too small on somebody. So that's just one example of a multitude of different ways that Jewell is going to change this Sky team if they are to bring her into their context. And I think that past just that dynamic, I think she would relieve a lot of the pressures on Tyler Marsh in terms of trying to generate more offense from this group at its core.
Yeah, I do think it would be a really good thing for Tyler Marsh, especially to have her there, not just, on the court, but also somebody else in the locker room kind of being able to echo his voice and somebody who's been with good coaching for a long time. We've talked about what she's going to bring to the Sky. I want to talk about what we would have to give up to get her. So many people in our comments right now are talking about it, so let's dive into it. Brian here saying the Sky would have to give up too much compensation, a haul like they gave to Phoenix for Kalia Copper. Are the Sky willing to give up that? I don't know. What do you guys think? Christian, what do you think the Sky would have to give up to give up to get her, and is it worth it?
Well, for one, the number 3 overall pick is definitely in consideration, and I understand why some fans wouldn't want it to be, but the WNBA is unlike any other league as far as sports league. Unless you have a run like the Aces where you draft so many consecutive number 1 picks, you're never really gonna be in that championship window building through the draft. That's just not really how it works in this league, and it hasn't for a very long time, unless you have that type of pedigree, which we've only really seen a couple of times, whether it be the Sparks or it be the Aces, or Minnesota. That's really it over the last 20 plus years. So I understand the hesitation behind wanting to package up another deal. I understand the trauma after just sending Kai away, but you have to look at it like this. I understand Jeff Pagliacca said that the Sky were prioritizing wings and length in the draft, but then again, are any of these wings or the length that they have gonna immediately apply positive feedback more than Jewell Loyd could? And I don't see that right now, and I wouldn't see that for another 2 to 3 years. That number 3 pick, possibly going to be AZ Footer out of Connecticut. I have my own concerns about injury history. Number 3 also could go elsewhere. They could go and draft. I've seen a lot of different drafts, but I really would like, Tahina Pow out of South Carolina. That's another point guard. If you feel like you don't want to, give up the compensation for Jewell, I feel like that's another young, good point guard that is a dual threat on both sides. She's shooting a career high 47% this year. She's not leading the SEC after she was last year, even though she's shooting higher than she did last year. So I think that's another point guard that could be in the mix if you don't really want to give up those draft picks. But then again, we're talking about Jewell Loyd here. I feel like we're in December. We're still a month and change out from actual free agency starting. Trust me, I don't think the asking price is going to be as high as it would be for Clay Copper, considering the circumstances around why she's leaving. Right now, I would say the Jewell Loyd and her camp kind of has the leverage. So I'm not thinking it's going to be some exorbitant haul like it was for Phoenix getting Kai.
Yeah. The number 3 pick is definitely a point of contention in the chat here as well. I know we're running out of time. Steven, real quick, are you comfortable giving up that number 3 pick for Jewell Loyd?
I am. And I am, because there's no guarantee that whoever it is you decide to choose at the number 3 pick turns out to be who Jewell Loyd is. And to Christian's point, you also don't guarantee that that player is going to come in and have the type of impact in your team's context that the Chicago Sky are looking to have. If we're bringing up conversations and things that Jeff Pagliuca has said, in addition to Tyler Marsh, before I get to Marsh, Jeff said they plan on winning while Angel and Camila are on their rookie contracts. Adding another rookie that you have to develop skill-wise and also get experience with on the WNBA level, though it might help, it's not going to help in the same way that it would if you added Jewell Loyd to your context. And if I now bring Tyler Marsh's comments into the conversation from his opening presser with the franchise, he overemphasized shooting. And you can speak to the numbers and all of that, but one thing that Jewell Loyd is, and a reason why she garners the attention that she does, is because she's such a great shooter and such a great scorer. She can be used in ways that she hasn't been seen to have been used in recent memory with the Seattle Storm when she's in the Chicago Sky context, because Angel and Camila can not only score, but they can also make plays for other people. And they're also good screeners off the ball. They leave a little bit more to be desired on the ball at this moment in time. But again, that's where the accountability part that I spoke to earlier would come into play. You add Jewell to this team, that instantly gives them more credibility to be a playoff team next season, and a playoff team that might potentially flirt with home court advantage depending on how they do in free agency around if they make that trade. So there's a lot of moving parts, but when you have an opportunity to add a player the skill level of Jewell Loyd and for the attention that she would receive and how that would benefit everybody else on the roster, including the coaching staff and the fans, you do it.
I really like what you said about the timeline there. That makes a lot of sense. Adding a rookie that is going to have, her own timeline to our 2 rookies that already have their own timelines.
Already got to.
A lot of moving
You hit the grand slam last season. Exactly.
Yeah. No, they really did. We are just about out of time here. Thank you to everyone who joined us. Leave a like. 19 is not enough. I know there are way more than 19 of you watching. Hit the like button. Don't make me come after you later. Thank you to Christan Braswell who joined us today. Like I said, Storm reporter for Circling Seattle Sports and Converge Media. You can find him at Christian WNBA. There is no I in there. Do not type in an I. It's not in there. As always, Stephen Garner, he is at PHNX Sports, at StephenPG3 on Twitter, X, Blue Sky.
She's quite literally everybody's friend. So the Sky are in good hands. They will be in a better space going into 2025 than they were in 2024. So stay tuned.
Yep. The Olympics are the recruiting for the NBA, and now Unrivaled is going to be the big recruiting spot for the WNBA. I love it.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, guys. We will talk to you so soon. Have a great rest of your day.
We all silly like the mayor.